You know how some phrases just stick? 30 pieces of silver is one of those. It's become this global shorthand, a symbol that pretty much everyone understands. So today, we're going to unpack exactly why that is.
Yeah, because this is so much more than just a line from an old story. For literally thousands of years, these words have carried this incredible weight. They mean selling someone out, trading loyalty for your own gain. It's the absolute definition of treachery.
So that brings us to the big question, right? When Judas made that infamous deal, what were those coins actually worth? And maybe even more important, what did that specific price really mean?
Okay, so if we're just talking about the silver itself, based on the coins they were likely using back then, we're looking at a little over $1,200 in today's money. But honestly, that's the least interesting part of this entire story. The real meaning, well, that's so much deeper. To really get the price, you have to get the setting. We're in the final week of Jesus' life. Tensions in Jerusalem are just off the charts. And right in the middle of all this, we see two totally different ideas of what Jesus is worth.
And this is just a stunning contrast. Right before Judas goes to make his deal, a woman comes and anoints Jesus with perfume that was worth an entire year's salary. I mean, an incredible act of love. And then, almost immediately after, Judas goes to the chief priests and asks, "So, what are you willing to give me?" And what he gets is this minimal, almost insulting price. But why that amount? Why 30? Well, that number wasn't random. It wasn't just some figure they landed on a negotiation. It was a very specific number, packed with symbolic meaning, and it was absolutely meant to be an insult. So here's the crucial detail. Under ancient Jewish law, 30 pieces of silver was the exact, legally defined value of a slave. Not a soldier, not a king, not even a free man. A slave. It's right there, laid out in black and white in the book of Exodus. This price tag was a direct legal reference that everyone at the time would have understood. By paying this amount, the priests were making a very public, very pointed statement about how little they thought Jesus was worth. And get this, the symbolism goes even deeper. Centuries before this, the prophet Zechariah acts out this whole parable where he's playing the role of God's shepherd, and the people pay him, you guessed it, 30 pieces of silver. And God's response is pure sarcasm, the handsome price at which they valued me. It was this prophetic echo of God's own people rejecting their shepherd for the price of a slave. So when you put all the pieces together, it becomes crystal clear. This was never really about the money. The 30 pieces of silver were a weapon. It was a calculated insult, a price tag designed to scream worthless. It was the price of contempt. Okay, so that explains the what, but what about the who? Let's zoom in on Judas Iscariot. Did he just suddenly snap, or was this betrayal something that had been building inside him for a long, long time? See, Judas's betrayal wasn't some bolt from the blue. It was the final step on a path he'd been walking for years. He was the group's treasurer, sure, but he was also stealing from the pot. His one question, "What are you willing to give me?" it tells you everything you need to know about his mindset. He had already put personal gain ahead of loyalty. You know, this verse, it feels like it was written for this exact moment. It wasn't the money itself that was the problem. It was the love of money. That desire for more. That was the crack in the door that let betrayal walk right in. And that's the danger, isn't it? Temptation can be just like a spider's web. It starts so small, maybe just a single thread you barely notice. But then you get a little tangled, and then a little more, and before you know it, you're completely caught. For Judas, what started as skimming a little cash ended with him selling his friend for the price of a slave. Now, here's where the story gets really fascinating. Judas wasn't the only disciple who completely failed Jesus that night. Peter, one of his closest friends, also committed a huge act of betrayal. But their stories could not have ended more differently. So let's put them side by side. You've got two men. Both walked with Jesus for years. Both betrayed him in a massive way. Yet one of them is completely destroyed by it, and the other one is restored. What's the difference? And this right here is the absolute key. Judas felt regret. It was a worldly sorrow, a shame over getting caught. He threw the money back, sure, but his guilt just drove him to despair and ultimately to his death. Peter, on the other hand, experienced repentance. His sorrow wasn't just about himself. It was a sorrow that made him turn around and seek forgiveness. That is the crucial difference. Judas ran from Jesus in his shame. Peter ran back to him. And here is the truly amazing part. Even before Peter blew it, Jesus knew it was going to happen, and he had already planned for his restoration. He tells Peter, when you have turned again, not if. It's this incredible promise that our failures don't have to be the end of the story. Okay, this brings us to the final, beautiful, powerful irony of this whole thing. That price of contempt, those 30 pieces of silver, ends up being the dark backdrop for the most incredible act of love imaginable. This is the great exchange. Humanity, through the actions of Judas and the priests, put a slave's price tag on Jesus. But in the ultimate reversal, Jesus valued us so much that he was willing to become a slave himself. The original Greek word is doulos, someone who completely gives themselves over to another's will, all to buy us back. So in the end, the very cheapness of the betrayal is what makes the cost of forgiveness so mind-blowing. That paltry, pathetic sum of money, thrown on the temple floor, just serves to highlight how immeasurable, how priceless the true cost of redemption really was. And that kind of leaves us with one last thing to think about. We know the exact price of betrayal, but the real question this whole story is asking us is this: if that's what it costs to sell him out, what is the incalculable worth of being bought back?